Good evening and welcome to Legal Talk, brought to you by the law offices of O'Donnell, Weiss, and Megay. Your life, your business, your law firm. We're located at 347 Bridge Street in Phoenixville and 41 High Street in Pottstown. And finally, you can learn anything and everything that you want to know about our business at www.owmlaw.com. My name's Dave Megay. I'm one of the attorneys with the office, and I'm joined today to my right by Rebecca Hobbs. Rebecca, thank you for joining me.
Yep.
And thank you for everything you do for the office. Folks, Rebecca is a certified elder law attorney, and she does a lot of estate planning and estate administration and elder law planning. And part of her practice is the estate planning, as I mentioned, Rebecca. And generally, estate planning is wills and powers of attorney,
Right.
revocable or irrevocable trusts. But one thing, folks, that you need to talk to Rebecca about is, and Rebecca will remind you if you don't raise it, is to make sure that your beneficiary designations are up to date and are coordinated with their wills.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Now, I'm not sure if I mentioned powers of attorney, but if I didn't, you should talk to Rebecca about wills and powers of attorney. But Rebecca, I know that at least I've heard through all these years, plenty of people say, well, my beneficiary designations are, or my will takes precedence over
Right.
my beneficiary designations. Or vice versa. I just thought of this. We should go back and say, what the heck's a beneficiary designation?
Right.
Give me some examples of where that's important.
Yeah, so a beneficiary designation is where you have, let's say, like life insurance policy or retirement account, or maybe you have an investment account or an account at the bank where you've added a beneficiary provision. So it could be where you've put a transfer and death provision on something, or where you've written out a beneficiary. So most often where you have those types of accounts, the time you open the account, you were given a form to complete where you listed a beneficiary on that form. And a lot of times people fill out a beneficiary and they forget that they put a beneficiary on that account, or maybe forget who they named as the beneficiary.
I've also had plenty of examples of where mom and dad have a child and they update their beneficiary designations on their 401ks, their life insurance policies, to have child A, the oldest child, as their beneficiary, and then child B comes along and they put child B down on one but not the rest.
Right.
And then the third child comes along and he or she's not on anything, but they just completely
Right.
forget.
Right.
So about once or twice a year, I'll ask a client to, hey, go back and double check your beneficiaries. And they always fight me and say, Dave, they're up to date. They're up to date.
Right.
And about once or twice a year, one of them will come back and say, guess
Right.
what? I never updated this old life
Right.
insurance policy. We only have the first child, not the second, too.
Right. And Dave, you mentioned retirement accounts and 401ks, and those accounts, so anything that's considered a qualified account, and that would be anything that has retirement money in it. So 401k, retirement, an IRA, a Roth IRA. It's really important to make sure that you have a beneficiary designation on those accounts because for tax purposes. So we all don't want to pay more taxes than we have to. And the importance of having a beneficiary designation on there is that if you do not have a beneficiary, then those accounts will pay into your estate and get hit with a higher income tax than an individual. So it's really important to make sure that for those accounts you absolutely have a beneficiary designation and that you make sure that it coordinates, like Dave said, with your last will and testament as well.
How about, Rebecca, if I have, let's do two simple examples. I have a life insurance policy and I have a 401k through work.
Right.
But I have one child, I have a spouse and one child, and that child is 10. I want my spouse to get my 401k and life insurance policy if I die, but if my spouse and I die, I want my 10-year-old to get it.
Right.
Should I name my 10-year-old as the beneficiary on
Yeah.
both of those accounts, or should I name something else?
Right. So that's actually a really good thing to discuss because a lot of people don't realize that a child who's under the age of 18 cannot inherit money outright. So if you named that individual child as the beneficiary, then what would happen is if you passed away and that child was 10,
Okay.
then we would need to go petition the court for a guardian to be appointed in order to handle the money for that child, depending on the amount of money that's there.
And that's not a simple, quick process or procedure. It costs some money.
Right. Yeah. It costs time, money. So the easier way is to establish a minor's trust for your child, and then to name the minor's trust. And you can do that really two ways. So one, you can just establish a testamentary trust in your will, and name that trust as the beneficiary. So that way, if something would happen to you and your spouse, then the trustee, the person that you want to handle the money for the minor, would be able to claim that money and put it into a trust account for that minor. Or you can create a separate trust, again, depending on the amount of money that we're talking about. And the same idea, the money would pay into the trustee and would hold it into a separate account.
All right, so if I named in my will my wife as my beneficiary, and then my, say, son, if I have one child and he's 10, but in the will I also say that if my child's under the age of, say, 18 is the minimum, say 21,
Right.
that's a testamentary trust which isn't started until when I die.
Right.
Or I could actually open up a trust, start a trust now while the child's alive, and fund it during my lifetime.
Correct.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. What if my child, or what if I have a beneficiary that has special needs?
Yeah, so that it becomes even a little bit more complex in that situation, because a beneficiary who is on public benefits, maybe because of a disability or an illness, that beneficiary, if they are on public benefits, cannot inherit money outright and maintain their public benefits. So an inheritance would actually disqualify them from benefits like SSI or Medicaid. And so you really need to make sure that you're careful with those beneficiary designations. So what you want to do is establish a special needs trust for that beneficiary, and then name the special needs trust as the beneficiary of the retirement account or the life insurance, instead of naming that beneficiary outright. So that way they can receive the inheritance and still maintain their public benefits.
That special needs trust, let's say the same scenario, I have a spouse and then a 10-year-old, or say a 40-year-old,
Right.
but that 40-year-old has special needs. Chances are I would have set that special needs trust up during my lifetime.
Yeah. So,
Probably would have already.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, so
With
you
your
can,
help.
right, and it's better to establish that ahead of time, so that way all those benefits that you want to pass on to that beneficiary can just flow naturally right into that trust.
Okay, all right. What about just generally the process of when the client is thinking about handling their wills or updating their wills and powers of attorney? There may have been some life events, such as a divorce, perhaps, or the passing away of a predeceased spouse.
Right.
Redundant, but you get
Right.
my point.
Yep.
Our clients need to review their beneficiary designations to update them, correct?
Right, yeah. So anytime there's a major life change, a marriage, divorce, a birth of a child, you want to make sure that you're not only reviewing your will and making sure your will includes all of those new changes, but also updating your beneficiary designations. Just because you updated your will does not mean that the beneficiary designations are automatically updated as well.
And this is a little far afield. We only have a couple of seconds, but I want to throw it out there. You mentioned something. Well, while you were talking about beneficiary designations being updated, please also update your account titles. I was just meeting with a woman on Friday morning who she has 3 children. We did a will giving everything to the 3 adult children, and we started going through our assets, and all of her bank accounts had her and child A as co-owners,
Right.
her and child B as co-owners.
Yeah.
I said, Mrs. So-and-so, why did you do that? Well, because that way they can handle the money if I become incapacitated. We had just signed powers of attorney. So folks, please speak to Rebecca about beneficiary designations and account titles to make sure that your whole estate planning package is well coordinated. Rebecca, thank you very much. Folks, thank you for watching Legal Talk, brought to you by O'Donnell, Weiss, and Megay Law Offices. Your life, your business, your law firm.